continue.
คอย
You
เลื่อน
see,
มุมนี้นะ
that's working. She's there, that's there. So you can keep the screen in person. And if you one day start to talk there, you just like leave there. And if too far, you can go take a little bit of zoom. Like keep like this, and that'll be fine. And then when people go back to back, good. So you can keep her. She's gonna start talk soon. So we can gonna keep like this. Maybe a little bit of zoom, and there you go. And that's fine. You just let maybe a little bit of zoom, and there you go. And that's fine. You just let them talk, whatever. Okay. Are you gonna be sitting behind the scene there? So if you need, to just go there and call me. Okay. Thank you. Thank you guys.
ถ้ามีปัญหาอะไรก็
มีปัญหาก็ไปเรียกเขา
เรียกว่าอะไรเรียกเขาว่า
พี่เกียว
แค่เนี้ยแล้วก็ยังไงต่อ
พี่เกียว I have some problem
มีคำถามมา
คือถ้าไปหาเขาก็รู้แล้วแหละ
เมื่อกี้เขาบอกให้ซูมหมายถึงว่าซูม
นะ
เขาบอกให้เราซูม
ถ้าเกิดว่าบางทีแบบคนเดินไปอยู่นู่นอ่ะบางทีคนพูดเดินไปนู่นหันไปแล้วซูม
ต้องซูม
หรือไม่ซูมก็ได้
จริงๆมันก็เนี่ย
เนี่ย
มันก็หันเอา
เหมือนถ่ายทอดสดนะครับไม่อยากจะซูมใครก็ซูมกันเลยเอาไว้ข้างหน้าเลย
เราไข่อันนี้เราต้องฟังอันนี้ฟังยังไงเนี่ยอันนี้คืออะไรอันนี้คืออะไร
ไม่ได้ใช้หรอกไม้เนี่ยมันเอาไว้รับเสียงให้รับเสียงคนพูดเสียงมันเข้าตรงนี้
เราก็ต้องฟังเขาปะ
เอาไว้นี่
เราไม่ฟังก็เหรอ
มันไม่ใช่หูฟัง ไม่มีให้เราฟัง แต่มัน
ก็ฟังจากนี่อยู่แล้วไง
ที่ไลฟ์อยู่ มีเสียงฟัง
นี่ไลฟ์สตรีมแล้วก็เขาพูดเขาเดินแล้วก็ฟังซูมไปเขาเดินไปไกลไหมว่าเขากลุ่มเนี่ยมานั่งฟัง
These cannot be happening so early. Day 2 of the Congress and we lost half of the people. No final friends? I think people might still be at breakfast, but we really need to get things started. Otherwise, it will be like this. Well, I hope you had a good day yesterday and enjoyed the reception. So if you know anything about Ramayana, so you'll be, I hope you have taken some pictures with Hanuman. So the other person is supposed to be half fish, half monkey. I don't know. The legend. Okay, good morning everybody. Let's just sit down and settle in for another day of wonderful presentations, conversation, discussion, and action. Today is the Community Day, so we have to make sure that all our community people are Okay, so we didn't really go through yesterday about this system of whisperer, but you may have noticed that already, that many people actually are clustered in two or three groups, a small group of two or three people, in order to get to get support with the language. Can you hear me okay? Not really? Okay, microphone please. Sorry. Thank you. Is it better? Okay, nice. Okay, so, well, good morning. I would like to welcome you to day 2 of the 3rd World Small Scale Fisheries Congress. We call today a community day for the reason that a lot of the conversation that will be happening today would be related to communities, fishers, fishing families, coastal communities. So we are very privileged to get many of you who are coming from your own communities and willing to share your stories with us. And we will get to that very soon. But first order thing is to make sure that we do a little bit of housekeeping. And I have a list, imaginary and all. Okay, so number one is for those who are presenting today. Please see the registration desk to put your PowerPoint there. Okay, so the registration desk will be able to have a folder where you can put your talk. So if you wait to go to the room, there's just too many of you. So basically you have pretty much any time you like. You can just stop by at the registration desk and give your presentation to the front desk there. Okay? If you are speaking in Pesca Kucha session this afternoon, you must do that by before noon, because we need to make sure that the slides run properly. Okay. So the plan for the day is similar to yesterday in some ways. We're spending a lot of time here in the plenary until lunchtime, and then we will go into these talk circles. So it will be somewhat chaotic like yesterday, but hopefully better organized, smaller groups this time. So we will explain that. Now, but you will notice that each break is not long, and lunch is only for 1 hour. So the feedback from yesterday is that it was not enough time to have lunch. You're not gonna get more time for lunch, but we are organizing it better. So hopefully there will be better flow of people in the lunch room. And the break is just outside, and I know you enjoy the little goodies and stuff, and also the conversation. If you listen, if you're in some of this room and you listen, you know that it's really noisy. The noisy conference is a good conference, definitely, except when you want to be quiet. So if the session starts, but you are still in the conversation, keep your noise, keep your voice down. You will notice that the access to this room, which is a Lana room, is actually there's the main door, and then it's this door here. So you will notice that this door is now going to be closed during the concurrent session. So the access to the Lana room would only be through that main door. So the door, the side door from this room and also from Taratong 1 to Lana room would not be available. So to go from, if you're in Nanta 1 and you need to go to Nanta 2, you just need through the partition. If you want to go to Lana room, then you just go through the main door. Want to go to the other room, you do the same. Okay? So squeeze through that partition. Right. So I think we would start a day. Today, the best way to start is really to look at what happened yesterday. So that's what we have in the program. We call it debriefing. So imagine, so many things happen. There are people who work hard to try to synthesize, summarize, and put this presentation together for us to, remember what happened yesterday. So I'd like to invite Evan Andrews, who's been working with Alida Panti and others, to come up and make the presentation of the debriefing from yesterday.
riser here I do not need. Too dull. Thanks for the opportunity to provide a debrief from our Science Day. Like Ratna said, we took the notes and synthesized and worked, and if you don't see your messages in there, we apologize, but we'll make sure that they're in the broader notes for the conference. And so what were the main messages coming out from yesterday? They were that small-scale fisheries are important places to exercise human rights, to advance food security, and for livelihoods to be enjoyed. But their sustainability is affected by multiple drivers that interact at different levels, including climate change. Not all small-scale fisheries are the same and are similarly affected by these drivers, which is a real big challenge for moving forward through policy processes. And of course, for implementing the small-scale fisheries guidelines in this dynamic context. But that implementation represents scientific and moral imperatives for us, academics, practitioners, and community partners. Of course, the human rights and social justice lenses are guiding lights for our work, which includes bringing research and these messages where the people are. Also, we have an imperative, of course, to pay attention to our inland fisheries. Now, yesterday was about science, and so there was a lot of sessions about data and methods, some indication that in various regions we are still data poor. New technologies were presented that may help build data using different knowledge types into the policy process. And of course, it's not always about data. So participation and learning techniques were important also for engaging people. And of course, inclusion of TEK in its various forms sets a foundation for us to move forward scientifically. And so most of our innovations mentioned yesterday were methodological. And you see some listed here today. What we didn't hear about is other types of innovations, including those that span social policy and institutional contexts. And really, we need to bring these into discourse in the next few days to advance access that's critical for livelihoods. And so we heard lots about new policy. We're going to hear lots about new policy instruments, ways to address multiple dimensions of justice, and of course, advance means for collective action. And we had some bright spots. Which are important to acknowledge, including the raising visibility for small-scale fisheries over the past 8 years, putting the guidelines in place. We heard from Edda Truth about various ways to outreach to communities, and of course, being recognized on the global stage. And I'm sure we're all going to have fun together in 2022 for the International Year of Fisheries and Aquaculture. And there has been more interdisciplinary and perhaps transdisciplinary work going on, but we can always do more. And so we're going to bring back to the core cross-cutting questions for this conference. What are the major knowledge gaps? And we heard about this a little bit before, but implementing those guidelines, building capacity and collective action, and the challenge of analyzing across diverse small-scale fisheries and communities. And a couple of core questions that came through, which is that not all fisheries are doing well. Why is that? Why are they different? What can we learn? And we must always reflect and debate those critical questions. Is development the right goal? Does viability come into that discourse? And how do we move forward in different ways? And our challenges, again, are just dealing with change, moving our policies into action, advancing those non-technical innovations, and of course, using our guidelines to help us do that. But we need to transform ourselves to make transformations in small-scale fisheries and communities. We need to bring those inland fisheries into focus. We need to understand why some systems are resilient, some are not. Where can we make transformations? Where do we need to resist? Do we need a crisis to happen before we can make change? Or are we in a crisis? And these are tied to funding and various academic and other constraints, practitioner constraints. And we need to make people care, and TBTI is a great example of a clear message. So thinking about that to bring awareness raising is important. What actions are necessary? While civil society has a big role in helping us both implement but also monitor progress with the small-scale fisheries guidelines, and to help us across all our partners build those capacities, and very importantly, organizing women to be involved in the implementation of those guidelines. But it's not always sunny, and we need to find ways to focus some conversation on strengthening the science policy interface, and I think we have a few days to do that, so that's really exciting. So thank you very much for the opportunity to provide the debrief, and have a wonderful day.
Impressive stuff, very clear, very concise. I don't know how we did it, I hope you got some sleep last night. Now we are going to move, okay, so many points about the data, and you mentioned ISSF, so we're going to get to hear a little bit about that. And then the rest is going to be the other conversation that we have about the community and the action and that stuff. Rodolphe? Yes, please. Where's the
Morning, everyone. So I've been asked to present you a project, one of the major initiatives from the Too Big to Ignore project, which is on the information system on small-scale fisheries called ISSF. I've been asked to give you a 5-minute presentation, so it's going to be very quick, but then you're very welcome to come and see me anytime during the conference to get more detail. So you may have, can I ask show of hands who has heard about ISSF? It's our online poll. Okay, yeah, that's good. Okay, thank you. So ISSF actually has been launched 4 years ago at the last Congress. So my next slide was actually the talk I gave back then. So you can actually see the map. So this was the map I was presenting, which was the cover, the webpage of ISSF with the different records we had on data. And this year, this is what we have. So one of the messages is that we had a lot of data collected over those 5 years, a lot of information. What is ISSF? It's, I believe, the world's largest database on small-scale fisheries. We have about 3,000 records at the moment. It's online, it's public, so if you go on the website, there is no protection, everything is here for you to access. An important thing, it's open data, so you can actually download all of the data using one click. So everything that is there, you can get it as spreadsheets, use it in Excel for research. You're welcome to do that, that's what it's for. And it's based also on crowdsourcing, which means that any of you can connect to the website and put information there. So I'm going to show you what kind of information. And what we're trying to achieve with ISSF is trying to get the pieces of knowledge that you all have about small-scale fisheries together, and then reshare them back to you as a community. So the website looks like this. You get on the web page, and it's mostly a mapping interface, but you can get the same information in tables. You can load and unload various data sets. I'm going to present very quickly. And there is a lot of function I'm not presenting today because it's too short about searching the data. So you can use any keyword like a fish species, an economic question you have, authors, countries to look for data. We have the information currently structured in 8 major data sets. So I'm going to go, the first one, we're mapping the people. So we have a map. You see the data set is loaded on the right here, which is called the Who's Who. And it's mostly scientists working in small-scale fisheries. So I believe, we have more than 400 or 500 experts listed on this, and I believe a lot of you are in this room. So any record you have, so you see those like orange bubbles, they are clusters. So as you zoom in on the map, you get them to uncluster and you can get the detail. And then if you click on any individual record, like this one, you get the information. And then if you click on details, you can go through the tables and then you get the detail about the person and you can see their contact information. You can see what question they're working on, species and all that. We did the same thing for organizations. We get a map of as much organization we were aware of about that work on small-scale fisheries. We have a layer that is looking at events related to the small-scale fisheries guidelines from FAO. So various events that took place in different countries. So same thing, you can select them, get information on them. We have a fairly extensive database on literature related to small-scale fisheries, which should be fairly appealing for graduate students, for instance, to search. We actually had it indexed by hand by research assistants in terms of keywords and things, so it's very rich and you can actually get quickly to literature that can be appealing for your project. In the last few years, we also developed a few maps getting data from other sources. So we were able to map, for instance, marine catch, as good as it gets with the data we had. So maps of marine catch where you can go on every country, like here South Africa, and get the actual value. We had the inland catch. We have the subsidies in small-scale fisheries. So all of those were studies that studied, like this one was based, I think, at UBC, where they studied subsidies, and then we collaborated with them to get the data and map it. Now, our most complex data set is about specific fisheries. So those are description of a place, a fishery, but in detail, in a lot of detail. So we collected data from the literature and some of you contributed data. And I'm calling on you, if any of you has a good knowledge of a place and the fishery, please reach out to us, give me your contact information, we'll facilitate this process to get it mapped. So for all of those, same thing, you can click on one of them, for instance, this one in Cambodia, and then you can get detail about, the actual fishery, and then you can get a lot of detail. So I'm not sure how well you can read that from where you are, but, you get 110 small-scale fisheries fishers, 90% of them are full-time, 50% are women, the contribution to the household income is 90% and all that, so we get a fairly rich data set. And something we achieved as well is coming with a series of characteristics that describe the fishery that are common for every single place in the world. So we have, I think, several hundred of places that are all described using the same information. We also aggregate this into some kind of reports. So each place is then, we generate reports that are a bit more visual, where we can show the major species, major issues, different distribution channels and all that. So this is as far as I can get you in 5 minutes. So I encourage you, outside in the lobby, there is a booth for TBTI, too big to ignore. So that's the photo I took yesterday of the booth. You probably saw the red books on the table. Now on this table, you get those reports that are actually information derived from ISSF. So how we're able to take those data on ISSF and aggregate it and start making information to characterize small-scale fisheries in different regions of the world. So this is an example of what we can do with that, and there is much more to do. And finally, if you want more detail, I encourage you to look. We published a paper last year in Marine Policy describing the process a bit and giving you more information. Thank you.
And actually, in your Congress kit, there is also a global synthesis. So you would have that. So based on all those regional reports, we have also put it through the global synthesis for you. So this is important to think about, to know and to think about, because we are going to be moving into the regional roundtable on Friday and trying to come up with some policies. So we want to build on the knowledge and add to that as opposed to reinventing anything. Okay, so that's all for the warm up for this morning. Now we're going to get into the real stuff now of the Community Day. So I would like to invite Andrew Song to chair this session, and the speakers, please come to the table. So Nigel, Linda, Ariel, Dasu, and Kasu. Please. Just you should have your name right there. So let's just have everybody on the stage so that we can get the session going. And there will be Annie with help support the translation of the presentation. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. We are kicking off the Community Day by presenting 4 community perspectives. The theme is on success stories and remaining challenges, and we have the pleasure of having with us 4 speakers: Nigel Martinez, Linda Benken, Ajali Dasu, and Gasugi. This session will highlight community perspectives on what constitutes small-scale fisheries successes and challenges, and from their point of view. And I'm excited that we're going to hear some nice stories. So, without further ado, we'll start with Nigel Martinez. He's the director of the Belize Federation of Fishers. He was born and raised in Belize City, and he's son of a fisherman. He oversees the executive functions for the Belize Federation of Fishers, and he also oversees the Fishermen and Ecotourism Alliance, which works to protect essential habitats for ecotourism and a healthy commercial fishery. We have a quote from him: "It is a pleasure to be able to dedicate my time and energy to the fishermen of Belize and the habitat they and so many other Belizeans rely on." So, over to you, Nigel. Thank you.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
Greetings from Belize. Thank you for this opportunity. As Andrew mentioned, my name is Nigel Martinez, and I am the director of the Belize Federation of Fishers, a voice for all commercial fishers in Belize. This morning, I would like to share one of our many success stories as it pertains to community knowledge and information in small-scale fisheries, as well as the remaining challenges. During this presentation, you will be highlighted by the following: some of our history as it relates to small-scale fishery, our current status, harvesting gears and methods, small boat versus industrial vessels, documenting and publicizing our fisheries, management of small-scale fishery, remaining challenges. Those of you who have worked or are working in Belize in whatever capacity, be it research or monitoring, etc., will appreciate the work even more that you have been contributing to this success. While Belizean fishers come from all over the country, there are 15 communities that are considered fishing communities. The DFF has representation from 12 of those communities. It is an honor to share with you some of our history in small-scale fishery. The country of Belize occupies the lower half of the Yucatan Peninsula and has a total area of 23,000 kilometers and 24,000 kilometers of territorial sea, which runs in the north to south direction. we have declared exclusive economic zone with several shelf areas. 90% of our fishing is done in inshore area using artisanal methods with an annual commercial production of $20 million. Currently, there are 3,000 registered commercial fishers, 2 active fishing cooperatives, 12 active fishing associations, to which the BFF provides 3 core functions: education, capacity building, advocacy. Over the last 7 years, the BFF was able to successfully achieve the following: harvesting of lobster, diving for conch and finfish, while using sustainable fishing gears. Promote the use of small boats as opposed to industrial vessels. Documenting and publicizing the life and work of Belizean fishers to highlight the importance of fishers to the Belizean economy. Assisting in crafting policies that advocate for habitat protection and sustainable use of Belize marine resources. These have been pivotal to the BFF's success in securing a small-scale fishery and a sustainable fishery for future generations to come. Belize has always been recognized as the leader in Central America and the Caribbean as having one of the most properly managed small-scale fishery that is stakeholder-driven and involves community participation at every level. However, before we could have achieved this, Belize had to change its management from an open access to a managed access fishery due to growing population, demise of cooperatives, lack of adequate scientific data, increase in transboundary poachers, and fishers' lack of knowledge or misconception of fish stock. Faced with these challenges, Belize made a significant change in 2011. With the help of key partners, primarily Environmental Defense Fund and the Wildlife Conservation Society, when we welcome a managed access policy for 2 pilot sites in southern Belize. From those 2 pilot sites, Glover's Marine Reserve and the Port Honduras Marine Reserve, Belize saw a decrease in the following: fishing violation dropped by 60%, 90% of fishers submitting catch data, illegal fishing in no-take zones declined sharply. Due to this success, the BFF, as well as other key stakeholders, agreed to roll out of the Managed Access Program throughout the entire country in 2016. It has not been easy. However, it allowed the country marine resources to be divided into 8 fishing zones, and at present represent 22% as marine protected areas and 3% as replenishment zone. While there are still areas for improvement, the BFF strongly support the Belize Fisheries Department and by extension the government of Belize in continuing to promote an ecosystem approach to fisheries management, more specifically the socio-economic and environmental sustainability of our marine resources. While all this is good, Belize still has some challenges to overcome. With these challenges listed, the BFF will continue to prepare its members through education and capacity building on the impact that will occur in seafood demand. We will also need to be cognizant there will be fragmentation of some fishers associations There will also need to be stakeholder consultation addressing the managed access licensing and functioning of the managed access committees. Soon, we will be implementing a national spiny lobster fishery management plan, which will address the issue of access, capacity building, as well as quotas. This will result to control of harvest, something we have done for conch, and will be now looking at lobster and finfish in terms of sizes once we have accepted the new policy and legislative changes. As we embark on these remaining and new challenges, we must be reminded that everything we do now is for the future of our small-scale fishery sustainability in Belize. And that is why one of our founding members of the BFF said, and I quote, "The BFF work is for its members, and the work of its members is the BFF. So we are not an entity that will take credit for work. Instead, all credit goes to our members." I believe that our small-scale fishery chain, which is mostly marine-based and support over 3,000 commercial fishers, should bring most value to our marine ecosystem, the economy, and create food access to those who livelihood depends on it. And that's Dale Fairweather, a member, commercial fisher for 34 years. I would like to acknowledge the following institution for making my presentation and participation possible: Oak Foundation, World Wildlife, WorldFish, Stonington, Maine, Fisher Folks of Belize, our NGO partners, the Belize Fisheries Department, and by extension, the government of Belize. Special thanks to Turner Fatal Trust, Dwight Neal, and Colin Gillett. Thank you.
Thank you, Nigel, for sharing a lot of progress achieved in management action led by community efforts through strong and active representation and community advocacy. It was very encouraging to see. We will, please keep your questions. We will run through all 4 presentations, and we'll have time for questions at the end for all the presenters. So next is Linda Benko of Alaska Longline Fishermen's Association. She has a BA from Dartmouth College and a master's in environmental science from Yale University. She has been a commercial fisherman in Alaska since 1982 and currently fishes with her spouse and their 2 sons on their 38-foot boat called Woodstock. Linda helped to launch the Alaska Sustainable Fisheries Trust, which invests in fishing access opportunities and community-based fishermen, community-sustainable fishing practices. And Alaska's owned the first community-supported fisheries program in Alaska. In 2016, she was recognized as the White House Champion of Change for Sustainable Seafood by President Obama. We welcome her to speak to us.
Thank you, Andrew, for that introduction. Thank you all. It's such an honor to be here and to be invited to speak. I also wanted to thank the Congress organizers and the supporters of this Congress who have made it possible for me, and I'm sure so many others of you, to be here. As Andrew said, I've been fishing for 30 years off Alaska. I've been involved in fisheries management for over 20 years and work with these people who are committed to small-scale fisheries, healthy communities, and fish for a living, but also because it's a way of life they love. This topic, the role of community knowledge and information in sustainable small-scale fisheries, is really central to my work and to the work of the people I represent. I'm going to talk about it in 2 parts. First, how we build communities to push industrial fishing out of our area, and then how we've built a network of our fishermen to share information, to share wisdom between fishermen and scientists, between fishermen and fishermen, and also between fishermen and the next generation to improve the sustainability of small-scale fishing and to improve
walk there and in the step and take a photo
To
for
orient
her in the
you,
presentation
this is
so you can see her
Alaska.
face.
Alaska has
Otherwise, you
more
don't see her
coastline
face.
than the rest of the United States put
No,
together.
in the pictures.
Southeast Alaska is the area where we're located. It's in the Tongass National Forest, which is a temperate rainforest and the largest national forest in the United States. Sitka, the community I'm from, is on an island. It's only accessible by boat or by plane, which is the case for most of Alaska's communities. They're remote, they're isolated, and fishing provides sustenance and provides the economy of these communities. Our members primarily fish from boats, and 80% of the boats, in fact, that operate in the Gulf of Alaska are under 60 feet in length. Our members fish out of open skiffs all the way up to boats that operate offshore, travel all the way to the Bering Sea, fish with hook and line and with pots for halibut, rockfish, and salmon, and singlefish. They fish with hook and line and pots. Our members are fishing families that work together on deck, often being out at sea for up to a week at a time, delivering into fresh fish into our coastal communities. For the fishermen in the room, we sometimes catch really big fish. The habitat of Southeast Alaska is characterized by a narrow shelf slope that makes the fishing grounds accessible to small boats. It's rocky habitat that supports these deep water corals. They're very productive. They're very important habitat for juvenile fish, as well as these long-lived rockfish will be very important in this presentation. These rockfish live to be 120 and 140 years old. They're very easy to overexploit. These corals, like any corals, are very fragile. They grow in the order of 1 centimeter per year. So in the 60s and 70s, all this was threatened by foreign factory trawlers who came and fished off our coast. In quick order, they depleted rockfish stocks, reduced them to 13% of historic levels, and also depleted sailfish and halibut stocks that were important to our local fishermen. Alaska fishermen worked with fishermen from across the United States to secure passage of the Magnuson Act, which pushed foreign fishing off our coasts, and all was well until the 1980s, when U.S. factory trawlers, again up to 350 feet in length, showed up off our coast and again started wiping out our local fisheries. In 1991, the bycatch, the incidental catch from one of these factory trawlers shut down our local fishery for the remainder of the year. This was the year I took over running Alaska Longline Fishermen's Association. I filed a petition to close Southeast Alaska to trawling, and that launched the fight. So we spent the next year documenting what we saw as the environmental impacts of trawling, providing our managers with pictures of coral in nets, of marine mammals in nets, of fish killed by nets that have been lost by trawlers. We testified, we sent letters, but in 1992, our request was denied, and managers determined that the environmental impacts were unquantifiable. But we didn't give up. We started building community. We worked with people across the entire region. We secured resolutions in support of closing the area to trawling from all 23 communities in Southeast Alaska and from the Alaska State Legislature. We worked for the next 6 years to pressure our managers, our council, to do the right thing based on the socioeconomic impacts to our small-scale fishermen. And in 1998, we were successful, and Southeast Alaska became what was at the time the largest trawl closure anywhere in the world. We didn't stop there either. We then realized we had a responsibility to work with our fishermen to be the very best stewards of the resource that they could be, and to support their viability as small-scale fishermen. And we launched working with them With the help and support from the Oak Foundation, a fishery conservation network that draws on the problem-solving abilities of fishermen by assisting them in sharing information between themselves and the scientists, as well as across generations, to improve the viability of their fishing and also their stewardship of the resource. The first challenge that we tackled was our own rockfish bycatch. Rockfish are taken incidental to our halibut and sablefish fisheries, but again, they're easily overexploited. So we convinced our fishermen to share their set data, which if you know fishermen, that's their best guarded secrets, as well as their catch rate data and their bycatch data. We verified that with fish ticket information and then brought that information together to map for them the areas where bycatch exceeded rates that were sustainable to help them avoid these areas as bycatch hotspots. Through that work, we recognized how important it was to help our fishermen recognize the habitat and understand very clearly what habitat they were working over. This is a typical NOAA chart, which shows soundings and fathoms, some indication of the habitat, but not a whole lot of detail. We were able to secure maps, information from state and federal managers that provides this level of detail, and then to translate those maps into a format that was usable by our fishermen and their onboard computer systems, so they could fish very close to reefs while staying out of those reefs. But not all areas are mapped, so we then worked with our fishermen to supply them with the technology to be mapping habitat where they were fishing, to give that information back to us and compile it so that we could map the whole area from the shelf out to the slope. With this level of coverage, 1.8 million data points provided by our fishermen, and with this level of detail, so that they can have this kind of information when they're setting their gear to be clean with where they set, successful in how they fish, and good stewards. We then collaborated with scientists to address another problem that had by this time occurred in our fisheries. Which was a new habit developed by sperm whales to remove sablefish from longline gear, called depredation. So we first worked with fishermen and scientists to understand this behavior and the acoustic cues that were drawing sperm whales into longline gear. We tested deterrence, developing a decoy system to lure whales away from active fishing sets, and then developed avoidance networks, first using satellite tags and what we call our serial depredators, the really bad boys of the whale fleet. And then now, because satellite tags are expensive, tow-to-rate systems which provide information on whale location between vessels in real time automatically. Our next challenge was when managers decided all boats in the Gulf of Alaska had to be able to carry observers. Our small boats didn't have room for observers, so we worked with our same network to develop electronic monitoring, or cameras, that could replace observers on our boats. To address the next generation challenges of bringing young people in, we've worked with our fishermen to launch a deckhand apprentice program, give young people that first opportunity to get a job safely in the fishing fleet. In terms of challenges, the big challenges we still see are access for our fishermen. The cost of entry is quite high, so we've worked to build a trust that will help support the next generation of fishermen in gaining access, as well as building a political constituency to support the sustainability of small-scale fishermen. And finally, we build community by working with the people who eat our fish, by providing fish from our fishermen to our consumers, along with a healthy dose of information about who caught their fish and the conservation work of our fishermen to provide a healthy resource for the future. It's a community-supported fisheries program called Alaskan Zone. So what we've learned, critical elements to us of sustainable small-scale fisheries are building community, sharing information and wisdom between fishermen and scientists, and between current fishermen and the next generation, and also identifying strategies that are both strong for conservation and help fishermen be successful at what they do. So end there with a big thanks to the support of the Oak Foundation that really has made our work with this Fishery Conservation Network possible. Thank you.
Incredible to see how the range of activities communities can engage in, and the different resources that communities can draw on, technical resources, political and social resources, and how effective those efforts can be in promoting stewardship. So thank you for that. Next we have Arjo Dasu. He is the Executive Secretary of the District Fishermen's Youth Welfare Association in India. He has 30 years of experience with this organization and 15 years of various national and international fisheries organizations. He believes that traditional fishing community can play a strong role in prevention of ecological damage in the coastal belt and empowering small-scale fishing communities. His work has focuses on three major strategies in conserving coastal ecology, which are sustainable, innovative livelihood enhancement, networking and organizing small-scale fishing communities. So we are happy to have him. Thank you. Over to you, Arjo.
Yeah. Thank you. Good morning, all of you. So I am presenting about Andhra Pradesh in India. Actually, we have promoted small-scale fisher women to provide fish mobile van, the successfully running at in Visakhapatnam beach road, very crowded area, and also regularly 8 hours job. The fisher women they work making and cooking fish as well as also dry fish also cooking and eat supply to the consumers. And the second one, we have promoted net make drying units also is successfully is running, and 30 fisher women going on this activity. And also is one more activity, another village we have established fish drying unit in Kundumarka village. I think 300 fisher women doing that process. This is solar fish drying unit. First in India, we have established a solar fish drying unit. So we have 300 fisher women working in processing activity, and 8,000 fishermen and women trained in this solar dry fish unit. In this context, actually, dry fish neglected in our Andhra Pradesh. Suppose cyclone time or any disaster time, there is no compensation dry fish. So they give compensation boats, nets and other activity. Especially they don't give a compensation dry fish activity. Under 95% traditional small scale fisher women regularly doing this processing activity. So there is no policy about dry fish. So we are joining in DFN project. Dry fish matters in 6 countries is going on. So we hope definitely one good policy will come. I am expecting that policy also. And third one, now we have installed seabed level fish aggregating devices. So regularly fish is journeying. So the fish centering that place, the small scale fishermen easily catch that place. So we installed 5 fisherfolk villages successfully running is a good catch also. This is one FRP fiber boat installed ice box with ice. They went sea and catch the tuna fish to put in the ice box. Hygienically is a very fresh. So before 90 rupees in Indian rupee. So now 160 rupee GG gills and guts removed the support BOPP is also supported, and 30 fisher boat, fiber boat owners, total 150 fishermen, they are doing the process. Next, challenges in Andhra Pradesh. Particularly, we are facing weather risk and health risk, operational risk, asset production, those risks. There is no support on the Pradesh government, and also climate change and impact. See, previously we are using 3 to 4 nets. So now we are using 30 to 40 nets. The total is changing, and the sea erosion is more. So I think every year our Andhra Pradesh 900 coastline 974 kilometers, 555 fisher folk villages. Every year one village mean 30 to 40 houses gone into this because of climate change and sea erosion. Third one, there is no fish is also declining. Previously 100% fish catch is available. So today 20%, 30% fish is available. 60, 70% fish declining, and also policies and acts, CRZ and MFRA. So our government policies opposing totally our small scale fishers, because in India 8,108 kilometers, Andhra Pradesh 974 kilometers, entire coastal area, government is establishing thermal power plants, tourism, resorts, ports, and chemical industries. Those industries is established. Totally they occupied our beaches also. Then every waste goes into our sea, like garbage or dustbin. This is our sea. Next, displacement. In our Andhra Pradesh, 555 fisher folk villages, 23 villages as are now displaced. There is no livelihood, there is no sea. They are converted some criminal activities. So there is no livelihood also. And the technology. See, scientific technology, big technology, costly technology. So costly technology cannot adapt it. And even scientists also, they are not introduced our small scale fisher community. They are introduced large scale fisher community. So they don't know technologies. We are small scale fisher community depending on our own traditional indigenous technologies. And sea safety and navigation. There is no sea safety equipment and even navigation material. Very few small scale fishermen using GPS and some equipments also. Government schemes, 90% government schemes favorable large scale fishermen. Only 10% schemes small scale fishermen is giving, but not availability, no accessibility, no appropriateness also. And fish conservation. In fish conservation in Andhra Pradesh, they are doing bottom trawling net, large scale fishers, and mid-water bottom trawling net, large scale fishers. We are only doing gill net as well as long line fishing. See, we are depending on the livelihood people. So they are depending on the business people. They are doing business. We are day-to-day survival, livelihood purpose doing this process. And women issues. Women a lot of facing a lot of problems because there are no fish market. Daily street vendors. The street vendors, fish and including ice, they had blown. Totally hat is damaged. Some diseases also coming at that time. So, and migration. In Andhra Pradesh, 70% migration, particularly in Srikakulam district. And Sagarmala, Government of India is introduced promoting Sagarmala project. Sagarmala project, entire coastline is established in 6 lane roads, then inviting so many chemical industries and some ports, some thermal power plants also. So definitely government, we are fighting with government, do not encourage establishing polluted industries for area to provide fishing infrastructure and equipment like jetties, landing centers, solar model, and smoker and dry fish units, cold storage, size plants, fish value addition units, occupational skill development, fish bazaars, fish safety, navigation equipment also. Definitely, government will support 90% will you of expecting subsidies also, and implementing CRZ. Coastal regulation zone is also violating the government of India, particularly up to 500 high tide line, up to 200 low tide line. So recently, one CJWP, Coastal Zone Management Plan, public hearings is going on. We have fully opposed. Me and our community, our small scale fisher community, totally opposing this process. This is we are using small scale fishermen fiber boats. Thank you. See our life, post our life. Thank you very much. And we are working with in India ICSF, Sebastian and John Kurian sir also giving a lot of inputs for us for encouragement, small scale fishing community. Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Thank you, Arjali. That was a great speech and highlighting important training activities being undertaken as well as innovations being developed in the communities. And he also spoke to us about challenges that small-scale fishers face, which is a sobering reminder that communities face multiple challenges. Okay, finally we have Mr. Gasu Ye. He has more than 30 years of experience in the Senegalese artisanal fishing sector and also has 10 years of experience in industrial fishing. He is the president of the African Confederation of Professional Organizations for Artisanal Fisheries, TAOPA, and also the Non-State Actors Platform for the fishing and aquaculture sector in West Africa. He is also a member of the board of directors of Fisheries Transparency Initiative. Gasu will deliver his speech in French? Yes. Yes, okay. So, so we will have him deliver and we will invite Annie to come up and translate to us, those who cannot speak French. So please welcome him to the podium.
Qui est basé en Afrique, au Sénégal. Donc, je vais expliquer un peu la démarche de la CAOPA pour la promotion d'une gestion durable de la pêche artisanale. Donc, la CAOPA, je vais faire une brève présentation de la CAOPA qui a été créée en 2010 à Banjul, suite à des rencontres annuelles depuis 2000, qui regroupe 24 organisations nationales de pays artisanales maritimes et continentales d'Afrique. Donc voilà les pays, Bénin, et ainsi de suite. Donc ça c'est la reconnaissance officielle en 2013 par le gouvernement du Sénégal et qui a été publiée au journal officiel. Donc rappelle le rôle essentiel de la pêche artisanale en Afrique, emploi, alimentation et maintien des communautés côtières dynamiques. Axe de travail de la CAOPA pour la promotion d'une pêche artisanale durable. On a deux cadres de référence. C'est les directives volontaires pour une pêche artisanale durable et le cadre politique de la stratégie de réforme de la pêche et de l'aquaculture en Afrique de l'Union africaine qui a été adopté à Malabo en 2014 par l'ensemble des chefs d'État. Donc il y a le développement de plans d'action nationaux pour une pêche artisanale durable, le renforcement des organisations professionnelles nationales, pour nous, c'est extrêmement important. Pour pouvoir participer à une gestion durable des ressources halieutiques, il faut qu'il y ait des organisations professionnelles fortes, structurées, dynamiques, mais qui respectent les enjeux de la transparence, de la démocratie et de la redevabilité. Pour nous, c'est extrêmement important, surtout la redevabilité. Développement de plans d'action nationaux, promouvoir le développement de manière transparente, participative et sensible aux enjeux de genre de plans d'action nationaux pour une pêche artisanale durable. Au niveau panafricain, la CAOPA porte cet engagement dans le cadre de la politique et de la stratégie de réforme de la pêche et de l'aquaculture en Afrique de l'Union africaine via les plateformes des acteurs non étatiques. Au niveau des pays, en collaboration avec la FAO, des ateliers nationaux ont été organisés en Guinée, au Sénégal et en Côte d'Ivoire. Ils sont prévus dans plusieurs autres pays africains. Donc, résultat, dans les 3 pays, le gouvernement met en place un comité pour le développement d'un plan d'action national pour une pêche artisanale durable. Renforcement des capacités par les échanges d'expérience, information, sensibilisation par les médias. Donc la CAOPA a aidé à mettre en place et appuyer un réseau de journalistes africains pour qu'ils puissent comprendre les véritables enjeux de la pêche et surtout artisanale. Donc on a travaillé avec les journalistes de région PRAO, leur successif à news, pour documenter les enjeux rencontrés par les communautés côtières en Afrique et sensibiliser les acteurs, les décideurs et le public sur une pêche artisanale durable. Donc ce document-là, voilà le document avec lequel on a travaillé avec les journalistes, qui est dans le site de la CAOPA, qui existe en anglais et en français, que vous pouvez avoir en version électronique dans le site de la CAOPA. Donc, défi de la durabilité du secteur, c'est d'abord amélioration de la transparence dans le secteur de la pêche, dans le but d'impliquer les acteurs dans la définition et la mise en œuvre de politiques de pêche durable. Améliorer les conditions de vie et de travail des communautés de pêche, des femmes en particulier. Implication permanente des acteurs de la pêche artisanale à s'adapter aux impacts des changements climatiques et lutter contre les pratiques de pêche non durables et illicites. Il y a d'autres défis également. Aujourd'hui, on ne peut pas parler de durabilité. Et aujourd'hui, au niveau des petits pélagiques côtiers, surtout la sardinelle, on voit l'implantation des industries de farine un peu partout en Afrique et qui peut décimer totalement la ressource et nuire complètement la pêche artisanale. Donc là, il y a une réflexion à mener surtout au niveau des stocks partagés. Parce que la sardinelle est l'élément essentiel de l'alimentation en Afrique et nutritionnelle. Donc il y a également l'enjeu du gaz et du pétrole qui commence à se dessiner dans nos pays. Quelle cohabitation on doit adopter pour le pétrole, le gaz et la pêche, qui va réduire les zones de pêche avec les plateformes qu'on va installer, réduire les activités maritimes, qui pose un véritable problème. Donc je vous remercie de votre aimable attention.
Can you hear me? Yes? So I'll do my very best to summarize our presentation. So Mr. Gauss-Gege just told us about the approach of the CAOPA, the African Confederation for the Professional Organizations in Artisanal Fishing. And so he talked about their approach for promoting sustainable management of artisanal fishing. So first, he began by presenting the CAOPA, which is based in Senegal. It was created in 2010 in Banjul, following annual meetings that were ongoing since 2000. CAUPA is composed of 24 national marine and continental artisanal fishing organizations in Africa, and on the first slide listed the 24 countries, and this CAUPA has been officially recognized by the government of Senegal by decree in 2013. So artisanal fishing has three main roles in the country. First of all, employment, nutrition, and also maintaining the continuity of dynamic coastal communities. The work of the CAUPA is organized around two main axes for promoting sustainable artisanal fishing. These are the development of national action plans for sustainable artisanal fishing. And the second one, which is a very important one, is strengthening professional organizations at the national level. And this is really important for sustainability, that these organizations can be strong, well-structured, dynamic, and also that there is a focus on transparency and especially sustainability. And the work of the CAUPA follows two main frameworks. The first one are the voluntary guidelines, and the second one is a political framework, the political framework of the reform strategy for fishing and aquaculture in the African Union, which was adopted by the majority of the, not the majority, that was, sorry, it was adopted by the state, the African states in 2014. So mainly the work is focused on developing national action plans. And there was a quote that the work is, the goal is to promote the development in a transparent manner, a participatory manner, and also in a way that is sensitive to gender issues of national action plans for sustainable artisanal fishing. And at the Pan-African level, the CAUPA tries to implement this engagement in the political framework of this reform. Like I said, this is around the political framework of the reform. So at the national level, there are national workshops that were conducted in collaboration with the FAO in 3 countries, Guinea, Senegal, and the Ivory Coast. And there are now many others that are planned in other countries. And the result is that in these 3 countries, the government is now putting in place a committee for the development of a national action plan for sustainable artisanal fishing. And the last slide was about strengthening the capacity by exchanging experiences, information, and raising awareness through media. So the CAUPA has actually worked with journalists to form a network of journalists that are now sensitized to the issues around artisanal fishing. And so they work with the journalists to educate the journalists so that then the journalists can raise awareness among actors and the general population. And the document that was shown is the document that came out from this work with the journalists, and it's available in both French and English. And finally, our speaker spoke about some of the challenges that remain. Transparency in the implementation of those plans remains a challenge. Also, improving the quality of life of the fishers, but also the women in particular. Also adapting to the challenges of climate change. And finally, tackling non-sustainable and illegal fishing activities. A few other challenges that were mentioned. There are now many factories, fish meal factories that are being implemented in the countries, and these are a challenge because they can easily resource, which will affect artisanal fishing. And this is a challenge for stocks that are shared. And he gave as an example the Sardinella stocks. And there's also some challenges regarding the development of oil and gas, which can take up space for artisanal fishing and create more competition. So that was it in a nutshell.
Annie, could we have you stand by in case there's any translation needs? Thank you. Yeah. Okay, so we have some time to interact with the speakers. There are 2 mics set up, one over there, one over there. So anyone with comments or questions, please don't be shy. Yes? Yeah. And you can sort of line up and take your position.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you very much. My question is for Nigel. At the end of your presentation, you identified important challenges, one of which you referred to is the importance of managing some important fisheries that are sensitive to disease. In particular, you mentioned the spiny lobster fishery. I know that there has been some important efforts by OSPESCA, which is the organization of the fishery sector and aquaculture in Central America. Can you talk a little bit about common efforts in the region that have been facilitated through OSPESCA, in which Belize has been part of, that you can share that and maybe tell us in what ways you see this mechanism of regional cooperation as an important avenue for managing sensitive features such as the spiny lobster. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. Yes, as I had mentioned, Belize is a member of OSPESCA. OSPESCA was recently had a workshop in Belize City. So they are helping us to develop this management plan. The fishery, spiny lobster fishery in Belize is one of the biggest commercial species for us that we depend on in terms of export. So that regional body give us the opportunity to strengthen that fishery sector, to ensure that there is sustainability, to ensure that the harvesting techniques that we are accustomed to is going to last for a long time. And we are making some changes, some significant changes. I can tell you that in reference to the plan that is going to be developed, that will be addressing capacity building, that will be addressing quotas, will now change the harvesting technique that what we have been accustomed to. We're now moving a lot into whole lobster. That will allow us to not harvest a significant amount of the juveniles or kill off a lot of the eggers. Thank you.
Yeah, so thank you very much for coming to share your experiences with everybody in the room. It's very interesting. For me, a common theme that I heard was the sort of policies and regulations that either promote or prohibit small-scale fishing communities' rights to nearshore fisheries management. Both in Belize and from your experiences in Alaska, it seems like you've done quite a good job at fighting for the rights of small-scale fishing communities to manage those resources in regards to their needs. And it sounds like in India and in Senegal, maybe you've had a bit more of a challenge in that respect. What practical recommendations or actions do you have for those of us working in countries and contexts where the laws are perhaps not so friendly to small-scale fishing communities, and in fact maybe marginalize their rights and centralize decision-making at levels that are not really representative of communities. So any sort of practical recommendations or actions that you feel might be interesting for those of you here in the room to apply in our own work? Should I repeat it in French? Maybe for... Merci beaucoup pour votre présentation. C'est vraiment intéressant d'entendre de vos expériences au Sénégal. Ma question, c'est est-ce que vous avez des recommandations pour nous qui travaillent dans des contextes, des pays qui n'ont pas vraiment des lois qui supportent les droits des pêcheurs pour la gestion des ressources artisanales, des actions, des recommandations que vous avez pour eux qui travaillent dans des pays où il n'y a pas vraiment ces lois?
Okay, thank you for your question. I can start. For us in Belize, it was a lot of challenge. However, what we did was basically, we started by organizing the fishers. So we organized fishers in each of our fishing communities. And by doing that, we were able to speak one voice. And what that allowed us to do was to educate them, to build capacity within them, and then for us to sit at the table with the regulators. And that was how we were able to influence some of the changes that we wanted to see in our fishery. Because at the end of the day, it was our members who was out there working extremely hard and who didn't have a say in the governance of their fishery. So what we had to do was to ensure that we start from that perspective. And that allowed us to now have a seat at the decision-making table where we have an influence, where we have a say in how our fishery is being managed.
I would echo what Nigel said. Thank you for that question. I would echo what Nigel said, that certainly the key is organizing fishermen to be involved, bringing fishermen to meetings, encouraging fishermen to engage, helping them see that there is a real benefit to them and having their voices be heard in the management process. And then going beyond the small group of fishermen maybe that you work with, building coalitions, building networks across regions to the degree that you can, really increases the leverage, aggregates the influence of the small-scale fishermen to have a voice in the process. But it's an ongoing challenge. I'm sure Belize as well, but certainly in Alaska, our resources are so much less than what the industrial fisheries bring to the table. But while we've done our best to amplify the voices of small-scale fisheries, and in some situations with great success, it's still a challenge and something that we work at all the time.
Yeah, in India, thank you very much. In India, we are working with Andhra Pradesh small-scale fisher community. Actually, we are giving a lot of training inputs, capacity building, as well as, I think recently 4-5 government is promoted polluted industries. You have fully opposed stop it is also. Particularly in Srikakulam, one district, Sompeta, thermal power plant is promoted government of India, government of Andhra Pradesh also. Fully we opposed, stop it there. So our community, small scale community is very strong, fighting with the government policies and protecting our rights also. Thank you.
Merci donc pour la question de monsieur. Ce que je veux dire, c'est pour les recommandations dont vous faites allusion, donc moi je dis qu'il y a 3 recommandations. C'est d'abord de faire la promotion de la transparence et de la participation. Donc là, ça peut aider tout le monde à gérer d'une manière durable les ressources halieutiques. Et comme je l'ai dit dans mon mon exposé, de prendre comme cadre de référence et de travail les directives volontaires pour une pêche artisanale durable. À mon avis, c'est un excellent cadre sur lequel on peut se reposer pour vraiment travailler d'une manière saine et durable qui a profité à tout le monde et aux générations futures. Et également, pour ceci, il faut qu'il y ait des organisations ou des associations fortes, structurées et qui respectent les règles de la démocratie, de la transparence et de la redevabilité. Parce que la majeure partie de nos associations et de nos organisations, leur principale difficulté, ils ne sont pas redevables à ceux qui les ont mandatés. Et ce qui fait que, généralement, ça amène des fissures au niveau de la base et que certains projets et programmes, et en tout cas, ne sont pas visibles vis-à-vis de ces communautés-là. Je vous remercie.
So in terms of recommendations, there would be three. The first one would be promoting transparency and participation. Also working within the framework of the voluntary guidelines for small-scale fisheries is an important tool. And finally, one very important point is that fishers need really strong and well-structured organizations and associations that respect democracy, transparency, and mostly accountability towards its member and the general population.
I think we have time for one more question. The lady has been waiting patiently. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing. Question is for Linda. I'm interested to know what or collaboration there's been with First Nation peoples and Indigenous peoples of Alaska within the small-scale fisheries, and just if you can speak to your experience working with Indigenous peoples in Alaska, or any insight you have into small-scale fishers of Indigenous descent there.
Thank you for that question. So our membership does include people who are Native Alaskans, which is how they refer to themselves over the First Nation title. And from early days, the involvement of Native people in Alaska's commercial fisheries has been quite significant. Subsistence, of course, is also extremely important to rural residents of Alaska, both native and non-native. And those rights to subsistence are primary in Alaska and respected over sport or commercial access. But we have seen a declining participation by Alaska Natives in the fisheries as the cost of entry to the fisheries has climbed. And that's one of the goals of our trust, is to work with individuals in those communities as well as the community entities themselves to help with access and support re-entry of people from those communities back into the fishery.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. I did see a lot more hands, and more hands are going up now, but I think because we do have another session after the break, and we are back in this room on the same community theme, I think we will continue our conversation there. I think these stories and experiences really grounds our work and our thinking, and in a way, I think it helped validate why we do what we do.